Let's then move on to this La Liga in the United States thing, where we were going to start off originally. Last week, the Spanish Football Federation approved a request from Barcelona and Villarreal to play a league match, a La Liga regular season match in Miami. Now, this was rumored to happen for some time, and we actually gave our thoughts on what would happen if this were to be a thing, but now it's at our doorstep. It still needs approval from UEFA and FIFA, and it will take place in December. We have seen vehement pushback from supporters of both clubs who are going to boycott and do a whole bunch of stuff to try and prevent this from happening. With all the hurdles that this has to go through, as we just mentioned, do you think this actually happens? Let's start there.
Of course it will. There's too much money to be made. They're gonna force it to happen, even if they gotta skirt around a couple of rules that are in place.
Interesting. Very quick, very easy. Didn't have any more there.
Unfortunately, that's the direction the game has gone. It's just all about money nowadays. So if there's money to be made, which I'm sure if this happens, we'll make so much money. Of course they're gonna do it. Especially for a team like Barcelona too, where they're like running out of levers to pull. This is a new one, I guess.
Don't worry, I've got a whole section on that.
Okay,
I don't
good.
know if this happens. I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't know if this happens, right? I think that,
Wow,
we've
ride the
been
fence.
no, listen. We have been preached at by these pro-rel advocates for years, right? Nothing beats the community connection to a club in Europe. That's what we need to get to because they would do anything for their fans because that's what's important. Not, I mean, winning games and connection to the club. Nothing else matters, which we all knew was a lie. But now it's showing its face, right? As teams continue to trend more closely to being brands instead of teams, it doesn't shock me that at the very least this is moving forward, right? And the reason why I say that is you've got NBA who are currently talking about creating a European division, right? Taking teams from Real Madrid and Bayern Munich and whatever and making basketball teams out of them and the NFL who are constantly continuing their global expansion. Brazil, other parts of South America, Germany, England, this place, that place. I mean, they are just playing games all over the place. It isn't to me completely out of the question that other sports, specifically ones like soccer, which are already competing for global eyes with other leagues in their own sport, right? MLS is fighting with the Premier League. The Premier League's fighting with, the Bundesliga. Bundesliga fighting with La Liga, whatever, right? That makes me think that they might feel threatened to survive by the idea of American sports taking over, right? And this might be their response. As Americans close in around them and put basketball teams in their backyard and football games in their backyard and all this stuff where fans are like, "Oh, this is different. This is interesting. Maybe I'll start following this." This might be their response to say, "Okay, well, we need to grab people from over there and make them fans of us because if we don't continue to grow, we die." Now, that is a very end of the world sort of, last case, worst case scenario thing. But this is going to impact the sports landscape as we know it. And how that happens, we're going to have to wait and see. So, did that sound too fluffed up, do you think?
I mean, I don't think it's a move out of desperation. I think it's just they recognize the fact that Messi's in Miami, so he's probably pulled a lot of Barcelona fans in the area or nearby that are going to be willing to go to a game if Barcelona's playing there. I think maybe for Barcelona, it's kind of a last ditch effort considering all the alleged financial stress that they're in, even though they somehow continue to spend boatloads of money. But I think it's just I don't necessarily think like it's a sport that I think transcends other American sports. Like it's just been around for too long, built too much of a connection. It's the same like if we were truly gonna if American sports were truly going to be that much of a beatdown against teams in other countries if they started to kind of move in into their space, I feel like Major League Soccer would not have the foothold that it does. And that's not to say it has a major foothold, but people still like Major League Soccer. Or sorry, I think I said that incorrectly. What I was trying to say was Major League Soccer hasn't been able to get more of a foothold quicker because There's all these other sports that have been around for super long periods of time, maybe centuries at this point, and people are just too committed to it. There's generational fandoms, like they're not going to part ways with it just because a shiny new Major League Soccer team pops up in their area. And I feel like the same thing is going to happen in Europe. So I don't necessarily think that it's a desperation move. I just think it's an opportunity for them to catch a quick buck and move on.
Interesting. Now, the desperation against other American sports, maybe that's the bigger stretch. But I do think that leagues that aren't the Premier League are going to see this as a and again, maybe desperation also wasn't the right word to describe it, but as the Premier League continues to grow and grow and grow and get all of this money funneled into them, you've seen Ligue 1, for example, right, who can't get a TV deal. You've seen Serie A, whose teams continue to go into financial failure every year because they can't fund what they're doing because they have no TV revenue coming in. They're running out of options, right? Now, again, the super teams like Barcelona, sure, you're not really going to have that many issues. I mean, you've got who is it, Laporta, who's like $40 billion rich and will pull 70, like you're saying, 75 different layers to make sure that he's within financial rules and blah 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 and whatever. But they don't have the money to compete with other European teams. So when you're looking for global eyeballs, and we're going to get into this in a second, when you're looking for global eyeballs, most of them are going to the Premier League. Why? Because they've got the most money and the most talent and the most people. They're buying everything. They're making themselves a bigger brand than everybody else. That means that the TV people are like, oh, well, I know where I'm putting my money to. I'm going to put it towards this team or that team or this league or whatever. And if it's not going to the Premier or to the La Liga, or even worse, if the La Liga, because I think I remember reading La Liga's TV deal was so one-sided, where it was like Barcelona, Real Madrid, Atletico Madrid, always finish 1, 2, 3, but they get 70% of the revenue, and the rest of the 30 get, distinct distributed out to whoever's underneath them. I don't know if that's necessarily true. I feel like I remember reading it once, but let's pivot from that for a second. We're gonna go global here in a second, but let's put our tinfoil hats on here. Pretend that this gets approved, right? What does it mean for MLS? How does this impact our league?
Me personally, I think it means nothing right now. However, I do think I think it is a good sign for the future. And I don't know if I want to go too far into that because I think it might touch into what this means for global soccer, and I don't want to jump the agenda and get yelled at.
Okay, interesting. At first, I had the reaction that we did when we first did this. This is stupid. It's going to be a relatively big hit to MLS if they start playing on top of our season games and cutting everything out and, basically taking over the time that MLS needs to grow. The game is scheduled for December 21st, 4 days before Christmas. That then changed my mindset. I was like, you know what? I think that this has the same impact or less of an impact than the summer preseason series does. Because at least the summer preseason series, you have people who are like, oh, I might go to the Atlanta game, or I might go to watch Man United versus Everton in their preseason because that's my first team. December 21st, nobody's watching anything MLS related. So they're literally this is going to be in my opinion, a bona fide exhibition match. Yeah, sure, it has real world experience, sure. Or real league experience, sure. But in terms of impact on what the viewer is going to see, it's going to be non-existent because we're not cutting anything out. MLS Cup will already be done. Uh we won't have had any preseason stuff for another couple weeks after that. So it's right it's in if it's going to happen, it's in the perfect time to do it. If you think about it, right, most people know that Barcelona's coming and they're bringing another Spanish team with them. If you ask them to name two players on Villarreal, they couldn't do it. I know I couldn't. But those people who are like, oh, Barcelona's coming, they already know there's a gap in quality. They already know that, oh, La Liga is better than MLS. You're not going to see this wave of fans flood away from MLS being like, oh, this is what I want to watch every week. It's just going to be another, and you were alluding to this before, it's just going to be another overpriced soccer event that Eurosnobs and self-proclaimed soccer purists are going to attend to feel morally superior to their MLS counterparts and be like, oh, yeah, you guys watch Columbus Crew. Yeah, I'm putting my money towards Barcelona. Thank you.
Some things will never change.
Never, never. Well, then let's move then. Let's go to global. Let's hit on your global takes here. Go ahead.
So what I was kind of hinting at before is I don't think this game is going to have any impact on Major League Soccer right now, but I do think it's encouraging in the regard that it seems like the sport has a pretty good foothold in this country. Otherwise, I don't think they would waste their time coming here. I mean, they come here because they know people are going to show up, spend money, and they're going to make a lot, and they're going to pack out a stadium because it's Barcelona. So I don't think they do that unless they really feel that there is a strong enough contingency of people here who are into the sport. Maybe right now they're mainly just interested in a couple of the big Premier League teams, Barcelona, Real Madrid, whatever. But I think there's maybe potential down the line, and it would take a lot of work, many, many years. Don't think this is something that would happen in a short term. But if people are already into the sport, I think you got a better shot at converting them into a fan of the local league, as opposed to somebody who just hates soccer in general and just thinks it's a garbage sport and won't give it the time of day. So I think it could be a positive sign for the future that the sport in general is just maybe it's a sign that I think the sport in general is growing in the country.
I think it's a hopeful point of view. I think it's one of those like, oh, somebody's gonna see that and then, you know, be drawn to watch soccer all the time, right? I struggle to see that because I feel like
Well,
that would have happened already, right? You've got all these teams that come over and play their preseason here, and you had the Club World Cup that just happened over here, right? And you don't see a ton of people going like, oh man, I can't wait. You know, again, I'm going to use my area here because we're within range. We've got tickets through our club to go to Charlotte Red Bull this upcoming, not this Saturday or Sunday, but next Sunday. And we just had the Club World Cup. We have all these kids are huge, like I said, Real Madrid, Barcelona fans, right? Those kids didn't see the Club World Cup and then say, "Oh man, I can't wait to go to Charlotte Red Bull this week." They're all like, "Yeah, maybe I'll go, maybe I won't go, I don't know." Right? There's that turnover doesn't happen, and I get that it's going to take a while to do it, but this isn't the first time we've had European teams on soil. I feel like it would have happened already. Is all I'm saying to a more impactful degree than it has.
I mean, I don't think people cared about the sport as much as in the past when European teams would come here,
Well,
but
they're here
I
every
think
year.
people care more about the sport for preseason games. Like it's,
Sure,
I don't think
you
people
think
are
sorry,
necessarily turning out as much
let
for.
me backtrack this. You think that when December 21st rolls around, the people who are rolling up to this game are going to be well aware of what the La Liga table looks like more than 2 days before they show up to the game? I think there's a small handful of people who
Yeah,
will do
because I
that.
think they're going to all be Barcelona fans.
Well, yeah, there's a small handful of it, but they're
I
not going
don't.
to sit there and be like, "Oh yeah, like Villarreal just, lost 7 on the bounce and it's going to be great." They're going to know that Barcelona shows up and they're top 2 because they're always top 2. I don't think the change between preseason and regular season matters. I also am curious, right? This is something we haven't talked about. We won't touch on it too much today. I'm curious how much they're going to care, right? You're picking them out in the middle of their season, right before Christmas, by the way, right before their Christmas break, making them travel cross continent to play a game in front of Americans who are going to be wearing Messi jerseys who hasn't played there in 6 years, however many years it was. I don't know. I mean, it takes all of the energy out of the game and it makes it feel like it just doesn't matter as much. It doesn't mean as much, right? The energy at Hard Rock Stadium will never ever ever compare to what Camp Nou will give you or wherever Villarreal plays because by the way, this is a Villarreal home game. You could never take a game away from Barcelona at home, by the way.
I mean, listen, what I was saying before is not that I just think there's been a shift in popularity of the sport in general. I think more people have become fans of the sport, and I think you have a better chance of converting them to following your league if they are already a fan of the sport versus somebody who just does not care for the sport in general. I think you're going to have a harder time getting them to become a fan, which is a lot of people because there's a lot of big American sports here and they follow their football, they follow their basketball, they follow their baseball, and they don't care about soccer. They don't want to put any effort into it. They know enough of it that they know they don't care. But I
Yeah.
think you could, if you continue to invest in the right players, guys like Messi, guys like Son, those are the people that I think could convert. I'll use the example of the kids in your club that you were talking about, right? Like if that is a Charlotte Inter Miami game and they have tickets to go, I think you're seeing maybe not so many more of them, but you're seeing maybe a handful more of them that are like, yeah, I would go to that game. I get a chance to see Messi and all these other Barcelona guys that I know play here. And maybe that's what kickstarts them becoming more of a fan of the league. Maybe they see other guys at that game that they like. Oh, Wilfred Zaha, I remember him. That's another name that I know if I go to that game. But I mean, I think, like I said, it's going to take time. I don't think it's anything that's happening anywhere remotely soon. There's a lot of work to be done on improving the quality, improving the names, improving the marketing. But I just think it's a better opportunity to convince them if they already like the sport in general.
I think it's a stretch. I kind of get where you're going with it, but I'm not sold on it because again, I think it would have been you have a ton of soccer fans here. You've got millions and millions of soccer fans that haven't been converted to MLS fans. It's not because of anything other than the fact that we're just not as good and we don't have the history, right? And nobody wants, and I've said this before, nobody wants to do the legwork of being the person who likes the MLS team before they are good, right? They'll jump on. If that was the case, they all would have been, and just because we were just having the conversation, they all would have been Stoke fans, right? Stoke, bottom half of the table, down in the championship, they would have been diehard Stoke fans because by the time they get up to the Premier League and then start winning things, then we would have been there first. No, they all picked up Arsenal, Man United, Man City, Liverpool because of the top four, and maybe Spurs because they were up there at 1.2, or Barcelona, Real Madrid because they have the best players on FIFA or whatever, right? That doesn't to me that doesn't translate. But we could talk about this for hours, and we will off air because I'm not letting you go for free.
Wait, no, 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 I have one more
Oh
thing I
my
need to one more
Lord.
argument I need to make on
Why
this.
is this the one you get hung up on?
Answer this question. Answer this question for me. All right. So if you have two people, you have a Manchester United. Let's say we're hold on. Let me think of a better example. Manchester United kind of are not good right now. Let's say okay. Let's say you have a big time Bayern Munich fan in the U.S. who doesn't watch Major League Soccer and mainly focuses on watching Bayern Munich, right? Robert Lewandowski comes over to Major League Soccer. Let's say he's playing for the Chicago Fire, right? So he comes over, he's playing for Chicago. Who do you think is more likely to now start to watch games in the league? The guy who's been here as a Bayern fan, who's watched soccer and has a love of Lewandowski, or the guy that's a diehard Chicago White Sox fan that's never seen a single game of soccer in his entire life and has no idea who Robert
I
Lewandowski
think I
is?
think you're pivoting points because to me your point
I
was
don't think so.
originally your point originally was if we bring teams to the US to let them play on our soil, they will support that team and then they will get into their MLS team. Where now it sounds like you're putting an
No,
extra
I
step
don't
in
think
there that's
that.
saying
That's not what I
once they
said.
play here and we sign them 10 years down the road, then they'll come back and watch one game, which by the way also doesn't do anything
No,
for
no,
you.
no, no. You are misinterpreting what I was saying then.
That's
I did
that's
not
where
say
I'm
I
you added
said
this is why I was confused because you added this second point in there like I didn't know where to come from.
no, no, no. I'm not saying that teams coming over is to like woo the people here into falling in love with these players on Barcelona. What I'm saying is that I think the fact that teams want to play games in the US is a good sign that the sport is popular enough here to draw on big enough crowds that they'll make enough money and want to play these games here. And to me, that is encouraging for the long term because I think, as the example I used before, I think you have a better chance at converting somebody who's already into the sport but doesn't follow Major League Soccer than you do somebody who does not follow soccer at all. Because if you're a diehard Barcelona fan and in 10 years down the line, 15 years down the line, Lamine Yamal comes over to the US to play in Major League Soccer, the Barcelona fan that's in the US that has not watched any Major League Soccer is more likely to watch Lamine Yamal than the diehard Boston Red Sox fan in the US that's never seen a lick of soccer in his life and has no idea what a Lamine Yamal is. That's the argument that I'm saying.
All right, a couple things. First, absolutely love the New England Revolution or Lamine Yamal's landing spot. Really good. That is very, very, very realistic.
That would be hilarious.
That would be funny. Um, no, and this is where I lost you because originally you didn't have this when we bring somebody else over in 10 years. That wasn't there in the first iteration of it, which is where you lost me. Now I take that into account and it still doesn't matter because you are then saying, okay, this person's going to watch Lamine Yamal play from Barcelona in Miami. Now we're hoping that one, in 10 to 15 years, we sign him. Two, we sign him in an area that somebody will want to come watch him play. And three, we're hoping that those people are not fans of Barcelona or don't know Barcelona already, then are going to watch this game and be all in on following who all of Barcelona. The rate of return on that investment is thousandths of a percent. The odds of that happening are so minuscule, it makes no impact on what we do in relative terms to everything else that we're doing, in my opinion. There's such a small percentage of the people who are going to be at that Barcelona game who don't know anything about Barcelona or are casual Barcelona fans who then are going to fall in love and become diehard Barcelona fans just so that in 10 years they become they go to a, again, we'll use New England because heck yeah, they go to a New England soccer game in Everett when they have their brand new beautiful stadium, watch Lamine Yamal play for Bruce Arena probably because that's the only real explanation here. Then becomes a diehard New England fan and becomes a season ticket holder. Like the series of events just will not pan out for more than 7 people. Like I don't see how that makes a huge impact, but I do understand what you're trying to say. I understand now where you're at. I just don't think it has a big impact. The reason I'm trying to move on, I know you want to defend yourself. We'll talk about it offline because we still have a section that we need to do here,
Fine, fine, fine.
and we have a whole nother topic because I wanted to talk about what this does globally for soccer because you kind of were mixing global and MLS. Globally, this is now kind of bigger picture, not MLS, but we look at this thing like the Super League, right? The Super League got shot down, but this is another seismic shift in what global football is viewed as, right? Back in the day, yeah, sure. You can tell me that in the 1920s, it was about teams from communities fighting it to the top, trying to be the best of the best and really connecting with their group, right? But the absurd, unchecked spending from teams in Europe, specifically American owners in England, by the way, for what it's worth. It has created, and I use this term desperation, and we talk about how it might not be the right term, but it's created this feeling of desperation to have a relevance in the global landscape, right? If you're not relevant, again, if you told me that you had these pro rel people who were saying we need pro rel, and they've got Messi as their profile picture, and you asked them who got relegated from La Liga last year, they couldn't tell you, right? Because those teams are not relevant in the global landscape. If you aren't, you cannot compete because you don't have the TV money coming in, you don't have the merch money, you don't have any of that global stuff coming in. So you're going to see, in my opinion, you're going to see teams, leagues, federations that are going to try and follow the money and they're going to try and stay relevant, especially in a world where these attention spans are so short that the second you're out of sight, you're forgotten, right? We only know about Stoke City because Jason. But if Jason wasn't a Stoke City fan, I could not tell you that they were a Premier League team at one point. My final point, and this is where I want to kind of wrap it up before we move on. Everybody complains that the US soccer and MLS are just full of cash grabs. All they want is money, money, money. I can almost guarantee you that in 10 to 15 years, Europe is going to start following that in some way, shape, or form. It might not be Leagues Cup where you've got, La Liga versus Premier League or whatever, but you're going to see more tournaments. You're going to see more games internationally. Ticket prices are already going through the roof. TV deals are going to try and get a step ahead of the next league. It's all coming because everybody recognizes that money rules what they're trying to do, right? That's why the teams from the fifth division of England are getting Ryan Reynolds and friends to give them millions and millions of dollars to buy their way up the league so they can get relevance and TV revenue and all this sort of stuff. That's why the Saudi investment funds are buying up a bunch of teams so that they can do the same thing and make a whole bunch of money coming back from it. Money has to get you to that point, regardless of whether you think it's the right way or the wrong way to do it. That's the way it is. So to end this off, I don't ever want to hear another word from a blue check mark buying anti MLS nerd on Twitter complaining that they can't get behind MLS because owners only care about money and not about the true spirit of the game. Because every owner in every sport in every country cares about money, and whether they are A, pushed to the brink of desperation, or B, tempted with a large enough pile of the stuff, they are going to do what needs to be done to make sure they get it. They don't care about anything else outside of the end, the bottom line and the end dollar. Whether you care about it, whether you think it's right or wrong, I don't care. You cannot now fall behind on this, especially if you're a fan of this stuff coming over. You can't say, oh, MLS only cares about the money because so does everybody else. And you're going to see it happen in 10 to 15 years. Soapbox over. How are we?
I think that's how we have to end the segment. I think that's a great way to end the segment.
Where's the BWP gif? Over. Or Thierry Henry did it too. No more. You're done. Because I'm tired of it. But I agree. Let's end that there and let's finish this up then.